Good morning, everybody. Um awesome. So I think it's working. Uh, yeah. Good morning. It's another cloud and coffee day. So last week we ended up finishing up the modern infrastructure as code with Pulumi, which was great. We went through like setting up a static website with S3, and then we jumped into some Kubernetes. And kind of followed along with the whole infrastructure automation using like a general purpose programming language like TypeScript, which is very powerful and definitely can see how there is a bright future with, the abstraction of that low level cloud formation or Terraform, that you can start to build these components and constructs that glue together, and it's not just um, that one to one type of resource mapping, like you get with CloudFormation. But yeah, so we're pretty much done with that now. So now gonna look back at the this awesome AWS workshops page and try and go through and see which one we're gonna jump into next. Um, you know, I'm most comfortable with, like containers and databases, not so much. Development, CI/CD, infrastructure as code, infrastructure. I mean, there's everything though. I'm not sure exactly which one to do next. I was kind of thinking about, continuing to go down the containers, Kubernetes path, since we kind of have got some initial um, exposure to some of the stuff there. But um, this one kind of looks interesting. Let's see. Oops. Oh, so it's not even a actual Amazon. Interesting. This one kind of looks pretty cool. Um, let's see. What about databases? Is this the same thing? Oh, that doesn't work. Data lakes and analytics. Yeah, it might be kind of interesting to try to step out of my comfort level and obviously like learn something new. Um, Maybe that's this one. But then again, these. All right, this is the one we're doing. Amplify social network app workshop. Cool. This is what we'll do. Yeah, because it's kind of cool because like when you work with like services like this, you can actually build something that you can see. I'm afraid like with if we do like a database something like it's not really like something that you could I don't know. But okay, so this particular workshop says Amplify Social Network App Workshop. Welcome to the Amplify Social Network App or SNS workshop. In this workshop, you'll learn about AWS Amplify in a hands-on way through the development of a Twitter-like social media application. The audience for this is a startup engineer who wants to develop at explosion speed. Wow, that's pretty fast. Server-side engineers who want to get started with front-end development. I think that's probably more in line with what I'm probably or the category at least of the audience that I fall into because I am not a great front end developer, but um, I've done enough with like so my blog actually Blake Green Dev. This is actually hosted on Amplify, um, and it's not great. It's I think it's using like a like a template or something or a starter thing from Gatsby, and uh, but I use like CM or Contentful for like CMS, and then Gatsby pulls the data from Contentful to like create my blog here. So grabs all the title, the date, the the paragraphs and whatnot, and all that good stuff. And it's not too bad, but it's not my favorite. So let's get rid of these two. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of experience with Amplify, and I've created or used it to deploy a few static websites, pretty much. All right, so this overall workshop assumes the situation by procurement stage of startups. This hands-on application can be created as shown in the image below. Stage 1 is the seed stage, chapters 1 through 4. So develop the app as the first engineer slash CTO of startup. You are the first developer of the startup. You decided to help the CEO develop social media applications, but you have 3 days to explain to investors, pitch slash demo day. It is enough to implement the minimum required functionality, but you need to launch at the fastest possible time. What you can learn is that as soon as you become familiar with the basics of Amplify, you'll learn how to use user authentication, GraphQL to implement timelines, and how to use amplified mocking. You will also understand that Amplified not only allows you to implement your application at the fastest time, but it supports future scalability. So stage 2, the early stage, acquire a certain number of users to respond to the growing challenges and feature demands. We implemented and released a minimum of functionality and succeeded in acquiring a certain number of users. Since it was built with Amplify, it is not necessary to manage servers. So Amplify is serverless. However, it is necessary to answer the challenges and functional needs that have become clear, such as fixing the validation that was done on the front end and improving searchability. What you learn to how to incorporate the high searchability of Elasticsearch into applications using GraphQL, and how to enforce input restrictions on the cloud side when using GraphQL. Very cool. That's going to be really cool. Okay, so then stage 3, the middle stage, businesses are on track and users and engineers are growing rapidly. As a result of continued expansion, the business goes well, and at the time the engineering organization began to expand. As multiple feature developments have progressed in parallel, you need to think about the efficient team development. Through what you can learn is that through the addition of functions, um, we will learn how to develop a team using multiple amplified backend environments and build a verification environment for each function using amplified console. Cool. I'm excited about this one. I think this is going to be a very interesting workshop, and yeah, development environment, node. Please note that for cloud IDEs such as Cloud9, port 2000 or 02 is not available during amplified mocking. Okay. I wonder if we could change that. But all right. So in this chapter, okay. Well, we already have an AWS account. Okay, so we recommend you run this workshop on a local environment. If you have difficulty setting up Node on your local environment, you can use Cloud9, which is a cloud IDE. It's the first one I've actually seen that they don't recommend using Cloud9, which is kind of interesting. But okay, so if you're familiar with Docker and VS Code, you can use VS Code's remote container. AWS Amplify Workshop in VS Code instead of using local environment. If you use this, you can skip installing Node. Ooh, I mean, I already have Node in Java, and I believe the Amplify CLI installed. But let's check this one out. So run the Amplify SNS workshop in VS Code's remote container. Oh wow, yeah, we're doing it. We're doing that way. So let me just let's see here. What's the best way to do this? All right, got my little terminal session here. I guess we can get rid of this. I guess I'm not gonna end up using using Cloud9 anyways. So, oops. Oh, probably can't see that, huh? Hopefully that's better. Okay, so basically gonna clone this guy here. Oops. And then we'll open it up in VS Code. That's cool. So it actually recommends like the remote container extension. So we'll go ahead and install that. Open remote container environment by following VS Code's pop-up window. If you already have existing AWS profiles in your local machine, you can use one of them in the workshop. Which reminds me, I don't even know what. I know I've um hmm. Let's just go with well, hold on one sec. Let me see if what my current default profile on AWS is. Okay. Yeah, we're good. So should I just reopen in container or clone in volume for better IO performance? Let's just reopen in container. This is cool. Very, very cool. Because I always find like when I start to, install and download all these different tools and whatnot, like my computer just gets fried over time and I have to, reset it. But if we can stuff this all into a Docker container and that be like our development environment, I mean, that's very compelling, and easier for us to move it around if we need to. So that's very useful way to get started on this. Yeah, I mean, because otherwise we'd have to. I mean, luckily I have admin privileges to this, but like if you were using a different workstation and you couldn't install all these tools. So yeah, that's cool. All right. While that's getting set up, um, let's continue through the introduction section here. So I'm gonna move this over a little bit so we can see it better. Hopefully. So the goal for this workshop, and they give us a final architecture diagram here. And holy smokes. Okay, so from a user perspective, we'll authenticate with Cognito, make API calls through AppSync. We'll fetch like the static website with amplified console. And then on the back end with the GraphQL API, looks like we make a call to Lambda to create and post a timeline. We can read directly from DynamoDB table, or we can read and create straight from there. Okay, and then we'll have a timeline table and a post table, which will replicate to a Elasticsearch service, and we'll have full text search from our GraphQL API. So, I mean, this is like, this is pretty cutting edge stuff here, you know. Very, very cool. I mean, the best part about this, though, obviously, is, you know, if I get back on my soapbox about serverless technologies, and, you know, I just kind of had a, not really a conversation, but sort of retweeted a Amazon employee who's apparently like a DynamoDB expert, and he listed out 5 things that you know, about serverless, and I happened to point out those are all 5 things that you don't have to do if you weren't using serverless. So and most of it was around like maintaining and being an administrator for a lot of those persistent resources, and more specifically, like you know, access or scalability and stuff that you really have to think of, like performing manually as an architect. Whereas something like this is these are all managed services, right? And that's really what makes serverless compelling, is that you already have a lot to, you know, sort of focus on as far as configuring these resources. But the benefit there is that you don't have to worry about the things that are behind these services anymore. You know, it's you configure them how you want them, and that's pretty much as far as you go. Like, and then if you need to update them, it's just as easy. But again, it's not, you're not worried about the uptime or scalability or security of these managed resources, because that is what is being taken care of for you by the cloud provider. So sorry for the rant there, but important thing to remember. And, you know, someone even responded back to me on Twitter and said, like, hey, you know, call me old school, but I just prefer to do it you know, the old way, I guess. And I was like, there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to point out how with serverless you do less but you achieve more. You know, I think that's the main takeaway there, is that you're not so much worried about all the just the particular things that you'd have to worry about with traditional sort of infrastructure and everything that goes into that infrastructure as a service type of model, and take advantage of these managed services, you know, and life will be so much easier. All right. Anyways, sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent there, but all right. So let's make a MVP. The storyline here is that Yuki of your friend came up with a social media app, Boyaki. where users can post and connect short text up to 140 characters. Yuki's investor said, "Show me something for the time being." Yuki asked you to make a MVP in 3 days. Having found possibilities in the idea of Yuki, you took on the creation of an MVP. We will take advantage of AWS Amplify to make a quick MVP. Now let's create an MVP that you want to show investors in a short time. Boyaki means tweet a bit gloomily in Japanese. Okay. We will what will be implemented in this section. I cannot read today. Login function, ability for users to post tweets in their own name, ability to display tweets of all users as a list. I don't know if you can see that. The diagram gets smaller if I zoom in, which is kind of weird, but okay. But basically, it's kind of showing the same diagram, architecture diagram, but more specifically of what this section will cover, I guess. So. Creating a working directory. So move to the directory you want to use and execute the following command to create a directory for this workshop. Okay, so it looks like it's once you start the dev container or the remote container, it's just an empty workspace. It looks like, right? So I'm assuming from here they will, we'll just make their amplify business shop cd amplify shop. Hopefully you guys can see that. Let me just scale this down. All right, so we try to make it easier for you to understand what kind of workshop you created when you look back later. Okay. Bootstrap a React app using create React app command of React. You can create a model of the React web application. So for more information, blah, blah. All right. So now we say npx create React app. All right. So while that's setting up, the next step here is that we will initialize amplify, um, execute the amplify init command at the top of the project root directory of Boyaki. It's a funny name. Yeah. So once we get into initializing the amplify app project, there'll be like a command line wizard that we run through. Yeah, create React app is it's kind of a beast. But yeah, you can start to see all the different files that it's putting into this new directory. So the ESLint extension we'll use for validation, which is installed locally in workspaces if you trust this version of ESLint. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so so now we need to cd into Boyaki. Okay, I'm just gonna get rid of that for now. Okay, so now we do amplify init. And it will be interesting to see if it grabs well, the name for Boyaki. They selected Vim here, but I'm using VS Code, so I'm just going to stick with that. JavaScript, React, source, build, npm run, build, npm run, script start. Do you want to use an AWS profile? Yes. Default. So after completing the section of profile, the backend initialization starts. AWS CloudFormation automatically creates the underlying AWS resources. Um, and we can test the environment locally now. So npm start. And then we can just open this in a browser. There it goes. Cool. So now we have our like boilerplate React app set up. Let's see. Once you have confirmed it, you can leave the tab for the terminal running. And then we can open a new tab and proceed to the task. We're not using Cloud9, so that's okay. So to open a new terminal, we just hit the plus button here so that it'll leave our dev server running. Okay, so Authenticator. In this section, you'll add the functionality of user authentication to your application. So it looks like this is the Amazon Cognito section. Adding authentication features, execute amplify add auth to add the authentication function to your app. A few questions are asked, so please choose all the default answers. Oh wait, we need to. So this part really sort of blows my mind a little bit because I mean, just adding authentication with a command line and a like setup wizard, that is pretty cool. You don't see that very often. Default config, username, no, I'm done. I mean that is pretty cool. So I think it manipulates some of the so it adds this directory here for Amplify, and then I think there's some uh, metadata about the React app and stuff that it knows. But basically, what we need to do to get rid of that again, to we kind of like created it locally now. We just need to push it up to our Amplify application in AWS. So it makes us check to see like this Amplify status will show us what is sort of pending. Cool. So then we can just do Amplify push. The amplify add category name command adds any category resource to the application. The status command displays a list of resources that are currently added to the application. push applies the changes made by the amplify add command. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, so implementing the authentication functionality on front end, Amplify provides AWS Amplify React. That is a library. We can click on that. That is a library of useful components available in React. In this workshop, you'll use the with authenticator component to allow only authenticated users to interact with the application. So it looks like we need to install some packages here. So give that a minute. I guess while that's still going, we're already in the app.js file here. And so it looks like we can replace the code in this file here. And I think basically all we do is we import. Oh wow, it changes quite a bit actually. All right. Oh, right. The push finally finished. So let's just install these so that we don't get error messages on the app.js file. But I am gonna just copy this guy and replace our app.js file with that, and then save it. With Authenticator prompts you for a phone number by default. You can skip the phone number input by specifying signup config. Okay. Yeah, I meant to look at this thing here too. Oh, that's just the npm package. So let's see if the documentation. Right. So here is this is what we're using. Yeah. So this is like very simple, the documentation for what we are setting up. All right, yeah. So it's like the with authenticator, and I'm sure there's more, yeah, like documentation for the UI components of the sign up and sign in. Oh yeah, it's right here. But Anyways, okay, so back to this thing here. So I'm assuming as soon as this package installs, we've already saved the app.js file here. We should be able to refresh our React app, and then oh, it didn't even do it. So I'm sure it'll reload, and then we'll be presented with the login screen. And it looks like we can create like a login test. And this is what it looks like. Oops. Man, this is taking forever. Yeah, I mean, I think it like under the hood, it's just all cloud formation, but I mean, it's again kind of along the same lines of our Pulumi workshop is that like this is how it should be is it you should have these like command line tools that generate that low level stuff for you. Come on. All right. Well, let's look ahead a little bit. Let's see here. So once that finishes, we'll come back and then reload the React app and see if we can create a test account. But for the next section, it says post feature backend one. Now that you've implemented the authentication function, let's create a GraphQL API to manage post. Okay, so we're gonna create a GraphQL API. Again, it's like the same concept as like the auth with Amplify. And I think it goes through another wizard type thing. When choosing GraphQL, it provisions AWS AppSync, which is a managed service for GraphQL. AWS AppSync provides 4 authentication options: IAM, API key authentication, Amazon Cognito user pool authentication, and OIDC authentication. You can use one or more of the authentications at the same time. when choosing REST, it provisions Amazon API Gateway plus Lambda plus DynamoDB. I kind of wish it would. I mean, maybe actually in this learn more section, it goes into more detail about the maybe the differences or pros and cons of using REST versus GraphQL. But all right, finally. So if we reload this guy, oh, it already reloaded for us once we installed those packages. Now we are presented with a sign in. And this is really cool, right? This is local to our machine, even though the Amplify app is up in AWS. We're still able to, use localhost 3000 to see to see this sign in to your account locally on our machine. So if we create an account and say Blake password, I'll just use that. Password. So I think there's like, yeah, there might be like a default for the password like complexity. So that should work, hopefully. No. So yeah, I just received an email now. I can pull that up real quick. So I received an email to my account and gives me this like verification code. So I'll just copy that in. And this is all built in by default, which is awesome. So okay, so my username now was Blake, and my password. Boom. Hello world. Um, so now we have full like user authentication into our application, like within 10 minutes or so, which is just sort of mind blowing, right? It's very simple to add just a few lines of code inside your React app to add authentication using AWS or Amazon Cognito. Cool. So yeah, if we jump back into the next section here, where we're going to create a GraphQL API. Again, we're just going to use the Amplify CLI. And I think I clicked enter too soon, but anyways, again, we received this like little wizard setup for adding an API to our project. I'm just gonna make sure that it lines up with that. So our authorization type for the API is our Amazon Cognito user pool. And now I'm done. Do you have an annotated GraphQL schema? No. Do you want to create it? No. Provide a custom type name post. Cool. So that's now adding that GraphQL API into that directory that we were showing earlier. So before we just had auth, right? Now we just added API. And so now we can go in and edit the schema for our GraphQL API right here. And I'm just gonna exit that. So it gives us some contents that we can copy and paste in there. That's what I'm gonna do. It boilerplates this for us, for just to get you started with the API schema. But here we're just gonna add. It gives us some more details about the schema. So with model, the model directive, DynamoDB table according to the definition of post type, and query/mutation for CRUD subscriptions are created automatically. So that's here. Okay, and then the auth directive can be used to implement query mutation authorization strategy for post type. Okay, so you authenticate with Cognito, and then that user is provided like permissions to perform actions with the API, if I'm understanding that correctly. Content is a field of type string. Makes sense. The type field is used later. It always contains post. Okay. GraphQL provides scalar types such as ID, string, and int. In addition to these, AWS AppSync provides unique scalar types such as AWS timestamp, AWS URL, and AWS phone. It's kind of interesting. Oh, wow. Wrong language. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that existed. So learned something new. Very cool. I mean, it certainly helps with, when we post to the social media app, that will get the timestamp of that post. So makes it a whole lot easier. Okay, so amplify mocking requires port. Okay, we already read about that. Amplify push refers to amplify push refers to and modifies the stack in the AWS CloudFormation, which takes some time. The amplify mock command allows you to check the behavior of these changes in the local environment before applying the changes to the cloud resources with amplify push. We can use amplify mocking once to see how the schema behaves. So that's really, really cool. I mean, the development process seems a little bit more efficient, right? If you're able to sort of iterate through developing it locally before you actually push and see how that affected the application. So let's see what Amplify Mock API does. Oops, spelled that wrong. mock API. So a few questions will be asked. Note the last question, enter maximum statement depth should be 3. Um, let's see here what happens. So this is kind of interesting. It says it creates a table, post table locally. I wonder if that's like on another Docker container maybe. But okay, so we'll hit JavaScript. Um, enter, yes, and then 3. So here sets the config of CodeGen command for query, mutation, subscription, in GraphQL. Maximum statement depth sets the how far the nested structure of the type in schema.graphql is scanned. If you want to change the settings, you can do the same with the amplify update CodeGen command. Okay, so when amplify mocking starts, it shows amplify mock endpoint is running at a URL. You can access this in your browser. Well, maybe not. Hmm. Maybe I didn't copy the schema correctly. Um, hmm. Let me see if what the IP of the container is. Hmm. Well, did that finally resolve? No. Um. Hmm. Interesting. So cancel out of that. I mean, I don't think I did. Well, shoot. Does the network say anything in there? I wonder if I just change this to localhost. Nope. Weird. All right. Well, I guess I'm gonna go off and try and figure out how I can get to this mock endpoint. So weird. I don't see why it's doing that. All right. Well, yeah, I'm gonna sign off for today. I think we made it pretty far. We chose to do the Amplify social media, social network app workshop. So we made it through sort of the prereqs introduction, and we added an API, a GraphQL API, but now we can't get to the mock, or I can't get to the mock endpoint so that we can start interacting with the API. So I'm going to try to figure out the networking issue, like why it's not resolving to that, even though we set it up properly. And it was saying like, oh wait, let me try to run it again. See if it changes. Obviously, they needs to be running. So did I set something wrong in here? Maybe. So JavaScript, the file name pattern of GraphQL queries, mutations, and subscriptions. Okay, so 172.17.02. Huh. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know why it's doing that, but we kind of need to get to that endpoint. So yeah, call it an episode there, and then we'll pick up. Hopefully, I can get through and figure out like what that issue is, and then we can continue to interact and create a post for our GraphQL API, and yeah, we'll keep going. So thanks for tuning in.